Today on In the Woodyard, we're going to do a delivery and we're going to talk about how to keep your firewood customers happy. Here we go. So today we got a delivery. We're going to my pizza place I deliver to every couple of weeks. Very good customer. He's been buying wood from me now for a couple of years. And I'll talk a little bit about what it takes to keep a good customer, because it's much easier to keep a customer than it is to get a new one. I have found that if you can keep people happy, they will keep buying from you. So there are certain little things that you can do that aren't that hard that will help you maintain your business and keep your firewood customers buying from you instead of going to someone else. None of these things I'm going to tell you about are rocket science. They're pretty much common sense, but I have found in my life, common sense isn't very common. A lot of people don't know what it is or how to use it. It's using your brain to do the right thing at the right time. That's pretty much what it is. Now, the number one thing you can do to keep your customers happy, return their phone calls, return their texts as soon as you can. Don't wait a day. Try not to even wait an hour. I try to get back to my people as soon as I can, because I have found that if I get back to them right away, I can usually schedule the delivery right away and I can get going right away. If I wait a day, if I'm gone doing something and I don't get to someone till the next day, especially if this is a new caller, a lot of times they've called somebody else because they want it now. Most of the people I sell wood to are not buying wood from me because, you know, I'm just good looking. Most of them are buying wood from me and calling me because they saw the ad, they want the wood, and they want it today or tomorrow. They're not planning ahead for the most part. Most of the people I sell wood to, it's fireplace people, people burning in a fire pit, people going camping. They want some wood right away because they go out to their wood rack and they look and say, oh, there's only a little bit of wood left. Hey, call somebody, get some wood. Call Chris, get some wood. And they'll do it and they'll think I'm just going to show up in 10 minutes, which I have done in the past, and that's very impressive if you can do that. But if you can just get their call or their text or whatever it is, their email, whatever they're doing to order the wood from you, if you can get that taken care of right away, that's awesome. Now, I know there's some people that do online ordering. I'm kind of anti-online ordering when it comes to firewood or something like this, because I want to actually talk to the person, I want to ask them questions, and I don't want to be playing tag back and forth for 3-4 days answering one question at a time. I want to ask them, what are you using the wood for? What kind of wood do you typically get? How much do you typically use? Have you tried this kind of wood? This is what I would recommend. What do you think of this? Here's what I can do for you. Do you want the wood delivered tonight, tomorrow, the next day? Do you want it in your garage so I can back right in? We can put it right into a rack. Do you want it on the side of your house? Do you want it dumped in your driveway? All the questions that I need to know before I leave, because I don't want to get there and have surprises. Because I also have found one other thing besides the common sense thing in life is that the best time to answer a problem or to take care of an objection, so to speak, is before it comes up. By being proactive and asking things that you should ask, or you should get your customers to ask you, but they don't know what to ask, is to ask them questions. So here's the typical phone call, text, email, whatever it is. Somebody says, hey, I need some wood delivered. My answer back is, thanks so much for getting a hold of me. When do you need it? What kind do you want? What are you going to be using it for? Those are kind of the three things that I try to ask right away, because those are the three things that are most important to them and to me, so I get them the right stuff. So those three are pretty much king. I also want them to know what I'm delivering to them is going to be high quality, really good firewood that's ready to burn now. If I do have someone that's buying boiler wood from me and they're not going to be burning it until next winter, maybe I can process some wood that's not totally dried yet. I have some customers like that where I'll deliver wood to them 6 months, a year in advance. They just want to stay ahead. And that's important to know, because that way I can process the wood right into a trailer, take it and deliver it. I don't have to put it into the bins to dry, that kind of thing. The other things you want to do besides getting a hold of them right away is to answer their questions. Now, common questions that come up is like, well, what's like your minimum order? For me, it's a face cord or a third of a cord. That's my minimum. Or some guys call it a truckload or Rick-a-Rank-a roll. It's a third of a cord, it's a face cord. That's the most common thing that people that buy from me buy. Because most of the people I sell to are not heating their homes. It's enjoyment wood, it's drinking wood is what I call it. It's fire pit wood, it's fireplace wood, that kind of stuff. Most of the people I sell to, because they're not heating with wood, don't have a big storage area. They have a rack or an area they put the wood that they've built, or a place behind the garage or in the garage. They've got a little rack built, and that's pretty much all they've got space for the most part. When they get down to almost the end, then they order more. That's typical of what I sell, that kind of quantity. Now, some people will buy more wood because they burn a lot of fires, or they might burn in the backyard in the fire pit or in a pizza oven type thing in the backyard. I got people that do that. They also might burn in the fireplace. They also might have a wood stove in their basement or even somewhere in their house that they're burning. So you got to ask these questions. You know, what are you going to do with the wood? Where are you going to burn it? How often do you burn wood? What kind do you typically get? What size do you need? Because my standard size is the 16 inches, hand-sized pieces, where pretty much anybody can pick up with one hand and put in. That's the standard size that everybody wants, that I sell to. I do have some boiler people that want the big, huge, all-nighters, the pieces of wood that, you know, you got to warm up before you pick them up because they're big. But most of the people, it's the standard size that you see in bundled wood. So I want to find out, what size is their firebox? Is it a super big, deep fireplace? Will they want some bigger pieces? They're okay with that. Or do they have a big fire pit that they want some bigger pieces? They're okay with that. But that's not usually the case. The case for me most of the time now is a lot of people have these smokeless stoves, so they're not real big. The standard 16-inch piece that they can pick up with one hand and put in there is what they want. Most of the people I sell to also want to see the fire. They don't want just a great big 40-pound chunk of a round that's, you know, from a 20-inch round that's been split just in half, where you literally have to use both your arms to lift it, to throw it in. That's not typical. Typical is my people want to see the wood, they want to see it burn, they want to enjoy the flames, they want some light. They want some life to their fire. They don't want it to just sit there and smolder like a big chunk of wet wood that was just cut, which is where a lot of people put in boilers, stuff that's not really dry. So I want them to know that. I want to find out what they need. So that's typical of what you need to ask. The other things you need to ask are, like I mentioned earlier, is what kind of wood you typically get. Because there are a lot of people that have only ever tried one kind of wood because they only know one kind of wood, and that generally is oak around here. People say oak because, well, that's what I heard people burn, or that's supposed to be good, or that's what my dad burned, or that's what, when I was young, that's the kind of wood we had in our stove, or I was at a pizza place and they had oak-fired pizza then, so that I figured oak is good. You hear oak a lot around here. So what I want to do is educate people to what's available besides the standard, whatever it is in your area. I want to let them know, well, there's also other kinds of wood that are great. Now, if you're going to be smoking meat, a lot of people do like white oak, and I do sell a lot of white oak. Some people will take anything. They don't care what it is, as long as it's not pine. A lot of people like cherry, and I sell a lot of that. A lot of people like hickory, and I sell a lot of that. What have you tried in the past? Have you tried these other ones? Would you like half and half? Because sometimes you're going to find people who've never tried something like, well, yeah, that would be great. Because I had one guy not too long ago that he bought a face cord, a third of a cord of cherry, and a third of a cord face cord of hickory. So half and half. He said he's tried both and he likes both. He said, let's do both. He said, some nights I'll try just the cherry, some nights I'll try just the hickory, sometimes I'll mix the two together. So there's that. Now, if you've got a supply of wood that you have a lot of and you want to get rid of it, suggest it. Give some free samples out like they do in the store when you're walking down the aisle and they shove the food in your face. Say, here's an armful of this kind of wood. For me, it's hard maple. I have a lot of hard maple. A lot of people in this area don't know that hard maple is every bit as good as oak, if not better. But there's not a lot of hard maple in this area. I was able to buy a lot of wood last year that was from north of here, which is where a lot of the hard maple comes from. We're kind of on the south zone of the hard maple. Not a lot of it here. It tends to be more soft maple. So I'm trying to sell more of the hard maple. I'm trying to get some people converted to it. I had one guy about, probably 4 or 5 years ago that always got oak, always wanted oak. And I told him, I said, well, I've got some locusts. He said, well, what's that? And this guy heats his house with wood. I said, well, locust is great wood. It actually puts out more heat than oak. It's a slower burn. He said, oh, well, that sounds great. He says, well, bring me a face cord of that and then 2 face cords, so it was a full cord of oak. So that was his other 2/3. So I brought it to him, and he usually gets 2 loads a year. And he called me, I don't know, it was maybe a month later, he calls and he says, hey, You got any more of that locust? He said, that stuff was awesome. He said, I have a thermometer in my stove. He said, when I have the oak going, the temperature inside of it is always around 1,000, 1,100 degrees, something like that. He said, that locust, the temperature was like 1,300. He said, it was hotter. It burned much hotter. He said, I want some more of that. I said, I got what you want. He said, bring me a full load. So I brought him a full load, and he was very happy. He said, that stuff was awesome. He said, you get any more, you let me know. So there's that. You can always sell what you have. If you're honest with people, you tell them the truth, and you make recommendations. Be an expert. Tell them this is what other people do. This is what I recommend. Tell them that. If you have a lot of pine, you want to sell pine. A lot of people are burning wood in their fire pits. Tell them, hey, if you want a lot of flame and you want snap, crackle, and pop, you want some excitement, pine is awesome. Pine is fine. It burns great. It will burn a little faster. It doesn't put out as much heat. But when you're sitting at a campfire in the middle of summer, you're not there for heat. You're there for the fire. If you want flames, pine. It works great. I know I've got some friends in Maine that tell me they sell a ton of pine. Actually, they sell way more than a ton of pine. They sell many tons of pine. That's like the #1 campfire wood that they sell is pine. So you got to educate people as to that there are other kinds of wood, and they all burn, and they have different purposes. You know, some people like the pine because it smells great. Some people like oak because it's what they've always burned. Some people love birch because it comes with its own fire starter. It's got the birch bark on it, which is like paper. It lights really easy because it has kind of an oil in the actual bark. So when you light it, it takes off and it burns fantastic. So there's that. So don't be afraid to make suggestions. Be a professional, ask a lot of questions, make recommendations, and then return their calls. The next thing after that is when you make your appointment to deliver the wood, if you're delivering wood, if you say you're going to be there at 3, be there at 5 minutes to 3, because there's an old saying in sales, if you're 5 minutes early, you're late. Be a little bit early. I also let all my people know when I'm coming. I'll text them and say, hey, got your wood on? I'm on my way. I'll be there in 15 minutes. I want them to know I'm coming because I want them to be there because I want to get paid. I want to be able to deliver it. I do not want to be sitting there waiting for them to show up from work, or because they decided to run out and go to the store and buy something. I don't want to be sitting there waiting. I have deliveries a lot of times back to back to back to back. So I'm on time. I want them to be on time. If I'm going to be a little late, because that can happen, I can have someone that does not show up on time, or they got a lot of questions, and I talk more than I thought I was going to. It's farther than I thought. It took me longer to get the wood loaded. I text them and say, hey, I delivered for 3 o'clock. I'm running a little bit late. I'm going to be there at 3:10. Is that a problem? Let me know. And usually like, no problem, I'm here. So I always try to be on time though. But if I'm not going to be, let them know ahead of time. Don't let it be a surprise. Definitely be on time and show up. I also a lot of times will text people that have ordered wood, say a week, 2 weeks in advance, and the day I'm going to be delivering it, I will text them and say, hey, we're still on for today, right? 3 o'clock, I will be there with your wood. Just letting them know that I'm going to show up, so they better be there. Also, let them know what you take for payments. Don't surprise them. Don't just show up and say, I'll only take cash. Let them know ahead of time. I always tell people I take 2 forms of payment, big bills and small bills, so they know I take cash. Occasionally, I will take a check. If it's a brand new customer and they've got a check, I just tell them I normally don't take checks, but I'll make an exception this one time. If the check bounces, I'll be back here tomorrow to pick up the wood. I say it jokingly, but not really. Just letting them know that it better be good. I haven't been burned yet, so I try to make sure that everything is taken care of that way. Now, I do have some accounts that are business accounts, like the delivery we're going to do today to Parm Pizza. He writes a check, but it's a business expense for him because he buys wood every couple weeks. So he's always paying me for wood, which is a good deal. So there's that. So in a nutshell, what it comes down to is make sure you return their calls, make sure you ask the right questions of them so you get them the right kind of wood, make sure you show up on time, do what you say. Do the right thing. Don't make promises that you can't fulfill. Be there. Show up, answer the questions, let them know that you know plenty about what you're doing. So I just returned from my delivery. I disconnected the little baby dumper trailer because that's the one I use for this delivery, and I just hooked up my bigger trailer, and I got a phone call from one of my new best friends, Jason. He's got some wood for me. So on tomorrow's video, you're going to see me going up to Jason's place. He's got a wood yard, so hopefully we'll get a tour of the wood yard. And he's got a bunch of wood he wants to get rid of. He's got some white oak for me, so that is awesome. So that's going to happen tomorrow morning at 5:30 a.m. You're going to be here. I'm going to be here waiting for you. See you then. Good night, Irene.